Hello, and welcome to the first prompt video in the Stitch With Me in 2023 Slow Stitching Workshop. In a previous video, I showed how we created the book structure using index cards, or just paper if you have it. It's a nice way to keep all our work together at the end of the year, and in the last video, I'll show you how I do that. But for now, we're going to start with the prompts. Now the prompts will be released on the first of every month according to my schedule. And that just means Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, any of those days closest to the first of the month, that's when I'll release the prompt. So today's video is for the first prompt, and that prompt is ANEW. It's very fitting with January. That's the month to start anew. It doesn't mean total clean slate because we have all our history that we bring with us, but it's a way to kind of start with a clean slate. It's a way to take the old and make it new, or to just start with a new mindset. We still have all our old knowledge and experiences and memories, but we're starting fresh. So that's really what ANEW means to me. Now for you, you can take that word and you can make it anything you want it to be. It can be something brand new that you incorporate into your piece. It can be a new idea, a new technique. You can even take something old and make it new, and that's what I'm going to do today in my piece. So let's get started. So the first prompt is ANEW. This is kind of a fun prompt because you can use the word new or ANEW any way you want. I chose to take some old fabric and bring it into new life. So it's kind of like a metaphor for the new year where it's not like a clean slate necessarily. You still have all the baggage and all the responsibilities from the previous year, but you're introducing some new elements to it. So it's like a new beginning. So I have this old little piece of fabric that I want to use as my theme here, my ANEW. And then I have some other fabric, again, that I'm going to use. So to start with, I'm just going to take my card. I basically want whatever I make to fit on this card, and it can overhang as well. That'll just stick out from the book, but primarily it's 3 by 4 inches. So I have some just muslin fabric and some interesting fabric, and I want the layers. I also wanted to introduce a pop of my favorite color, this teal. So I have some embroidery floss, 958, and I'll do that. And then I had this button that really reminded me of this little lace. So I think I'm going to work on that. So now it's about just creating the design. This is really one of the fun parts. So I like to just eyeball everything, and I'll just cut out my background fabric, my backing piece here. Just so that I have a good starting point. I'll just trim it down a little bit further. So there I have my piece that'll fit nicely on my card. And now I'll just go about designing it. So I can just take this off the card, set the card aside for now, and then just figure out what I want to do. That little corner's bothering me, so I'll just clip that off. And now I'll play around with it. You have the option of stitching your prompt or your interpretation of the prompt in text on your piece as well. So I might do that somewhere. I think I'll play around, kind of like that airplane. So I'll cut that out. Maybe keep it a little low. And now I'll figure out how I want to use this little piece here. So I'll just cut out a little of these crocheted flowers and see how I want to use it. I kind of like that using them together. Oh, I like that on that side. So now I'm just going to cut around the flowers here. So I'm starting to build up my piece. I could trim around it a little bit further as well, but for the design process, this is working. And now I want to incorporate a little pop of color. I think I'll just cut a strip of this fabric. Tear off the edge and maybe layer it underneath. Or I can layer it just on top. Oh, and I'm kind of liking the way this is progressing. So I'll see exactly what else I want to do. Maybe I'll incorporate another piece from that background fabric. And I'll slowly tear it. So yeah, I'll play around with how I want to layer this. I think I'll fold that in half just to give a nice little edge as well as a little torn edge, and stitch that down. I can add my button. I'm not really sure about that plain anymore. Maybe I can do it this way. So this is how I do the design process. I sped this up just so you can see my motion, but you don't have to wait for every decision or hesitation that I have. I basically have all my components that I want to use, and now I just arrange and rearrange it until there's something that I like. I set the flowers so that they'll trail off their page, but I'm not really sure that's the way I'm going to go. And I'll decide about that button after I stitch everything down. I'll see where it works. So I'm going to stitch everything down using the threads that I have. I think I'll incorporate some of that teal thread to stitch this down, and I'll decide if I want to stitch it around the pieces here. But for now I'll just stitch everything down, and then we'll come back and embellish it further. So I stitched it down. I used that teal embroidery floss just to make a straight line here, and I like the way that looks. It directs the eye. And I made the decision not to have the flowers here, the crocheted flowers, go off the little card. I think I like it just like that. Looking at this, I don't want to introduce another color. I kind of like it the way it is. So now I'm just going to add it to my card. But before I do that, I just want to write the name, the theme, on the back of the card. So it's going to be our first month, January. So I'm just going to write ANEW. And now I can just decide how I want to put it down. I like it like that. So now you could glue it down if you want. I'm just going to take some of that embroidery floss that matches the majority of my pieces here and just stitch it down. And again, I'm keeping in mind that 1-inch mark because that's how I'm going to bind the book. So I'm just going to stitch it slightly lower than that. And I just need enough stitches to tack it down. I can even do them strategically by hiding them behind some of the elements here. But it doesn't really matter if it shows up. So I just want to stitch it down to hold it in place. Just a few more stitches. And I don't mind going through some of the objects. So there's the front, there's the back with a little bit of stitching, and I'll just knot it off. So that's my first prompt and the process that I went through to create that. I'm just going to add it to my little box here, and then I'll have that to bind at the end of the year. So that's how I created my first prompt. If you'd like to create a prompt and post it, please join our Facebook group of the same name, Stitch With Me 2023. It's a private group, so you just fill out your request to join, and then you can post anything in the group that you'd like regarding 2023 Stitch With Me. It's a fun way to post your work, your progress, some eureka moments you may have had, or anything that you find that's relevant to Stitch With Me in 2023. If you've enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and be sure to subscribe. Thanks for joining me today.